Wonderful, wonderful. So very quickly, let me share my screen to welcome all of you today. 1 second, what I was doing? My goodness, sorry for this. Sorry for this. This is me and technology, and we are talking about information and constructive dialogue. Okay, so as all of you know, Youth Proactive is every year since 2023, indeed, we are organizing these youth goal webinars with the idea of bringing the 11 European youth goals to the general public and specifically youth, European, non-European, from everywhere, so they really understand what the 11 European youth goals are about. And today we are focused on one of the key foundational youth goals, which is the youth goal number 2, information and constructive dialogue. So as you can imagine, this is such a broad topic. There are so many elements that we can include within this youth goal. And we have designed the webinar in a way that we can really summarize all the vast experience of our speaker of the day in 3 key questions. So having this said, David, I'm really happy to have you as a speaker for today. Really happy. It's like, for me as a friend, it's an honor to have you as a colleague, as an academic. I'm very honored, to have someone of like your vast expertise, experience, and vision towards the future with us here today. So really, I really want to share with you that we are very lucky to have, David with us today. So I'm going to really to read.
Thank you so much. I feel humbled. I'm grateful for your words. You're so kind.
No. Gracias, David. So as you can see, that David is originally from Spain as me. So we are trying not to jump into Spanish, at least I will do. But trying to summarize, first thing I recommend is please scan David's LinkedIn profile, because what I'm going to do now is something that I usually don't do, but I need to read all David's biography because it's so vast. But in a nutshell, and this is something that really defines who is David, he has this sentence in his LinkedIn profile that really resonated with me, and it's catalyst for social innovation and human potential. So this is what David does with his personal and professional career. And in a nutshell, David is the country representative in Spain for the Innovation in Politics Institute. And as I was saying, he is a communicator, writer, researcher, consultant, facilitator, expert in leadership and public innovation. When it comes to academic journey, he holds a PhD in sociology, and also a bachelor degree in economics from Universidad Carlos III in Madrid. The PhD is from Universitat de Barcelona in Catalonia. And today, David is also here to talk us about several topics, and here there is one of them that I highly encourage you to check, and it's his podcast, the one that he coordinates and he has founded. And the title says a lot: Passion Moves the World. So here I place 3 QR codes for you: LinkedIn profile, Innovation in Politics Institute, and the QR code of the podcast. Don't worry if you can scan it now. Maybe if you are in your phones or your computers, you can scan, because I will be sending you these links afterwards in the follow-up email we always send. And having this said, I highly encourage you to listen to the podcast. I just listened yesterday, the last episode, which was a Europe Territory of Entrepreneurship. I love that episode, by the way. It was with Isidro Lasso and Alicia Asin. So inspiring, so inspiring. And it connects a lot with what Youth Proactive. We work in entrepreneurial policies empowerment. So highly encourage you to listen to all the episodes, but last one, really nice. So David, having this said, really, thank you very much again for being here with us today. Again, we are in very petit committee, so we will have more time, to make the most of the opportunity of talking to you. So having this said, as I say, we always organize our webinars, our conversation with 3 questions. So I'm going to read the first question, David, and then I'm stop sharing the screen. So feel free to share the materials I know you want to share with us. Okay, so first question for you, David. Our main topic in this question is the youth role in driving democratic innovation and enhancing online participation. So here, we have focused this question mostly with your role within the Innovation in Politics Institute. So I'm asking the question. I will give a couple of minutes for our participants to read it. But David, in your experience with the Innovation in Politics Awards, how do you see youth-led initiatives driving new forms of engagement and decision-making? And going deeper, how do digital tools and democracy technologies play a role in enhancing online participation and securing democratic processes? Very broad questions, but I know you are going to bring us to more specific details. David, before you answer this, to all the participants, super important, because I know David wants to make this webinar engaging. Please feel free to raise your hand at any time during the conversation to ask any question, comments, and you know we always have a Q&A at the end once we finish the conversation. But if questions just come up and you have a key question, please also feel free to use the chat. So having this said, David, I'm stopping sharing now so we all can see our faces, and the floor is yours. And again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I hope to be able to live up to the high expectations you raised in the beginning, but in the end, it's just sharing, bringing the best in everyone, sharing your experience and letting it be completed and improved by everyone else's. So thank you very much, all of you, for being here present today. And I really hope this time together is going to be of some use and maybe spark some imagination and some hope for the future, which is basically what I try to do. It is true that it's not easy to present my profile because I do different things, but it's all connected by the same spirit, which is probably you have the same experience, that you have different interests, but there is something underlying, like a message or like something that moves you underneath. And in my case, what I work with is with collective intelligence, with the creativity and talent of the people. And when you mount it up together, when you bring people together, you have a superpower. You have a superpower to change system, to transform society, and you gain a sense of agency about the possibility of changing the things which are around you. Maybe you alone, individually, you may feel like disempowered, like there is not much you can do about the many things you may see in the world that you cannot do much about. But when we come together, then you tap on something bigger. It's really like driving a huge plane with a great power that is made with a combination of the minds and the hearts of everyone. And the more diverse this is, the more people bring in their minds, their hearts, their whole being into our space together, the biggest the outcome of what we can achieve together is. And this has practical implications. This principle translates into a field of expertise, which is called collaborative governance, which is transforming the way many public administrations and companies and NGOs works, and also civil society, which is by seeing the whole picture of the system, by bringing in open spaces of conversation. And dialogue is precisely this superpower that unleash that magic of what can happen between people. You know, there are many situations, and in my work, I work with as a facilitator, dialogue facilitator, with multiple groups, and there is often an awakening of saying like, oh, we are all sharing the same problematic. We are experiencing it individually, but we are experiencing the same problem. And therefore, it's because it's not just an individual problem, it's a collective problem, it's a common or systemic problem. And if we act together, you have a lot of more power to act on that. And so as responding to your question, what is the role of the youth in the dialogues that we have, that we need to have as a society? In the case of Europe, I think like the youth should have, and we would all benefit a lot from it having a lot greater role. Like there are many dialogues and pending conversations, in my opinion, that we are not having, and youth is not having yet the role that it deserves, because I mean the present belongs to all of us, but the future belongs more to the youth than it belongs, especially to the young people, and they are not being sufficiently being listened to. And one key question that I think we should be asking is, what is the meaning of the European Union for the new generations? This is a conversation worth having because the European Union was born as a project of peace for 2 generations abroad. They were thinking like, oh, we don't want to have Germany and France and all European nations at war again. We need to come to peace. And they built a coal and steel union, economic union that then grew into more of a political union and monetary union throughout the years. And so in the beginning, it was like, let's prevent another war from happening. Well, peace is a very important thing. We cannot downgrade or underscore the importance of peace. But uh, the generation that were born in peace have not known a war. So simply preventing any war from happening, maybe it's not enough to create such a big union with such a deep level of integration. So for the generation of our parents in the 1980s, the EU was like a place for expanding individual freedoms. It's suddenly you can travel to any place in Europe. You can work in different places in Europe. There are many people from working class can elevated to have like social ascension to middle class and middle class higher. It's like a space of economic opportunities. But what is the meaning of Europe and the European for the younger generations nowadays in the 20th century, in 2025? What is it? And I think because the youth is not so invested with the system, because it has not invested so much in creating what exists, it can bring a critical perspective. It can say like, I want Europe, I want a more united Europe, but maybe not like this. Maybe the priorities can be different ones. And so what we can see is that wherever we bring the voice of actually of everyone, but particularly of young people, there is a contribution of a spark of imagination, of envisioning possibilities that maybe people who have been, that our brains have been maybe like shaped by certain ways of thinking, certain ways of feeling like, oh no, this is not possible. Oh no, how can we aspire to that? And so what I want to encourage is for young people to really trust that they have a role in reshaping Europe. For example, the climate movement, the ecology movement became a lot stronger when it was reframed in 2019 from being just the movement for the planet to being the movement of the youth, which are saying like, hey man, we want to grow up in a livable planet, and suddenly it booms. And so I'm awaiting the day in which the youth of Europe says like, Europe, yes, but maybe not like this, and we want to change it, and it means something different for us. Maybe it means peace, yes, it means ecology, it means a new generations of rights. Maybe it has to do with mental health, with gender equality. It has to do with the right to education, with also right to housing, right to emancipation and having a life of your own, right to having a meaningful work, and also certain responsibilities. And so I would like to highlight certain examples of how youth, like dialogue in which the youth is involved, makes a difference. Makes a difference in policy, makes a difference at local level, makes a difference at regional, national level, and in all places where young people are given a voice. So just to give a note, when we speak about opening dialogue for young people, this is a certain way of seeing democracy. Not everyone necessarily agrees with this. So when we speak about involving the youth in a conversation in which they have a meaningful influence, there is also a political dimension to this. There is also a vision for democracy, because right now we have 2 visions for democracy. One is a closed democracy or illiberal democracy. It's really more like an autocracy, which mistrusts the future, which mistrusts and kind of like fears minorities, which values uniformity, and which sees like life as a zero-sum game. In order for me to win, you have to lose. And there is another vision, which is that we can be better off together by cooperating. We can all gain by being inclusive, because we are not wasting the perspectives and human potential of people who may think different and be different. It is more oriented to the future. It has a sense of agency. We cannot come back to the past. So the task is to build the future ahead. And it sees life as a positive sum game. There is enough for everyone. There is abundance. We can exert power not only over the other. I exert power on you, you try to exert power on me. So we fight together, but it's power with. we push in the same direction, and there is enough for everyone. There is always alternatives. So for this, I would like to highlight a few experiences and a few resources that you may find of use. One is this is you can find it at smarter-together.org. We will share the links afterwards. It's the Routledge Handbook of Collective Intelligence for Democracy and Governance. It has 34 like world leading cases of application of collective intelligence in policy making. And it has certain examples also in which like the youth has a protagonist role. For example, in the chapter, I had the honor of being a guest author and a co-editor in this book. And one case that I think that it's very suitable for today is the case of the article by Professor Eva Sorensen on the city of Gentofte, where they do like mini publics, like citizen assemblies, in which before any major policy is implemented, it gets consulted, it gets feedback from groups of citizens. And the moment, for example, youth policies and other policies were consulted before they were implemented and received the feedback and ideas and so on, and received proposals from youngsters from the city, like there was a massive increase in the satisfaction that this policy delivered. It identifies certain items that may be like hidden in the agenda, certain necessities that not may be like high on the political agenda, like like mental health, like right to housing, like the difficulties of youngsters to emancipate, like concerns about climate and so on, like also like youth policies. And that's a great principle. In this city, after they started applying it's called like mini public, like these consultative bodies from citizens, they never came back to doing major programs without it, because you're losing the power of making people feel like they are part of what is being done. They feel engaged. It has more legitimacy. It has more innovative ideas, and it also you make sure that policies do respond to actual needs, because society is so complex that you cannot have the full map. You can never have the full map. And so you need to listen to people. And then it's like from public administrations, from politicians, from business leaders, dialogue is a superpower. And it's a superpower that's not being, that's more needed now than ever, when there's like polarization, atomization, individualization, when there are so many forces bringing us apart from each other. And then the problems that we've got tear us apart instead of bringing us closer together, which isn't easy, and which takes energy, and which takes time, and which sometimes is uncomfortable, because the other may not think like you, be like you, and have priorities and interests different than yours. But in the long run, you can achieve a much, much longer buy-in for policies, satisfaction with policies, and also less backlash, because there's lots of academic articles and literature that proves this point, that policies which are made with greater citizen participation are a lot more effective, a lot more innovative, and create more sense of ownership. So I recommend you to go through that book. And then in relation to the role of technologies and digital platforms to enhance citizen participation, I can recommend you another report, the Democracy Technologies in Europe report, that I had the honor to coordinate and be main author of, from IDEA International and the Innovation in Politics Institute. It summarizes the experiences from 53 cities and regions, countries in Europe, 53 different experiences, in which you see that digital platforms do also have a role in expanding, in bringing more people into the dialogue. Because dialogue between Teresa and me, it's okay, it's easy. You talk, I talk, it's two people. Between all who are here, it's already, we are many people. But if you want to make a conversation that includes like more, broader conversation in society, there is a matter of numbers. It can be dozens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands. So digital platforms bring you this possibility of bringing more people in. And one great example of how to use democracy technologies to enhance democracy at local level, for example, and not only at local level, is Decidim in Barcelona. It is the model that was developed in 2016 and has expanded ever since to hundreds of cities all over the world. And it has a hybrid model of face-to-face encounters and and processes that are expanded through digital platforms. And there are hundreds of processes on all imaginable topics. There is also a youth assembly that gathers like randomly selected youngsters, and they get consulted on their priorities for the city, and they can impact the agenda for the city. There are participatory budgeting, there are people's initiatives, there are all sorts of consultation processes that beyond the impact of processes create a culture of participation, a culture of what's common also matters to me. What matters to everyone, I can contribute to it. And there is a great satisfaction and sense of belonging when you can contribute something to your community. And may I say something about the experiences of the awards?
Completely, completely.
Thank you, Teresa. The
Claro.
Innovation in Politics Awards is an initiative which now is run by the European Capital of Democracy. Until last year, it was run by the Innovation in Politics Institute, and I'm the representative of the awards in Spain. So my work is to consist on talking and inviting to participate to many different leaders who have innovative projects, and it's a joy because it gives me hope because I'm constantly in touch with people who do great projects, great stuff, and you say, how can I lose hope when, there is a saying that says, a falling tree makes more noise than a whole forest growing. So we hear of many falling trees in the news, and it's easy to get like pessimistic. But there is also like a bias, no? We are also paying so much attention to the negative, and there is so much stuff being done. So I would like to just share with you briefly how to access it. May I share a screen, Teresa?
Yes, I think you are co-host, David.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see this is the Best Practice Hubs Awards at Innovation in Politics, that EU Best Practice Hub, and this is Europe's largest collection of best practices in politics. And throughout the years, there are like 7,000 projects that have participated since 2017 from 30 plus projects. And there is a citizen jury that every year votes the most innovative and impactful projects. They're like finalists in every category, and from each of the 8 or 9 categories, depending on the year, there are galas and there are gatherings in which public innovators from all around Europe share their best projects and share the inspiration. We give also promotion in the media, we do trainings and all sort of activities to really credit and recognize the innovators that are making the change. And so if there is any topic that you have interest in, you can go here and see all of the categories. There is all sort of categories. Imagine that your interest is in democracy technologies, for example, and you hit a search, and you're gonna find all sort of fantastic projects from all over Europe, and you can have more details about any of them. For example, the Cine Madrid, which is another great digital platform for citizen participation, for participatory budgeting from citizen consultations. And you can learn more about it. There is another, for example, great project that I'm very fond of, which is My Voice in Latvia. Estonia and Latvia, the Baltic countries are among the most advanced when it comes to digital participation. And so you search for it and you see My Voice. This is like a platform where any citizen can initiate a proposal to kickstart a law. And so if you get the percentage of I think it's 0.1% of 0.5 of the population, which is 10,000 signatures in this case, they trigger a compulsory debate in parliament. So they say like, we would like, for example, some people may say like, we would like nuclear power to be banned, but there are other people who say like, we want more nuclear power. And there are different initiatives, and they must be discussed in parliament. And sometimes they are formed like a specific groups, working groups, to give a proposal. And this is a great source of legislative creativity. you know. There are many options for Parliament to listen from what are the priorities of the citizen. And if you go to another, for example, for youth policy, and you check for another project, there are so many we could be speaking for hours without end here. There's a program in the city of Santander which is called La Noche es Joven, which it transforms many public buildings in the night into a space where activities for the youngsters and by the youngsters are organized, from dancing to theater to skateboarding to a sports match, from from concerts to comics and graffiti to films to and so it's creating almost like a movement of an alternative to the usual offer of going out and drinking. And actually there's so many more things you can do with your friends, not just talking and drinking and dancing. There's so many more alternatives, and also to meet new people and so on. And so I think this is just another example, and I invite you to really dive through this platform, also to stay in touch with me. You can ask, and if anytime you have a project on circular economy, maybe it's a project on I'm gonna stop sharing on any aspect, maybe it's about education or citizen participation and so on, and you say I would like to walk in the shoulders of giants. I would like to know what else is being done out there. What can I learn from? You can in the end always follow your intuition, but sometimes knowing that there are people out there doing this kind of work can be very emboldening and making innovators feel less alone. And I think I'm gonna stop here.
Wow, thank you, David. Thank you. You know why? Because Youth Proactive at the moment, and some of our partners that are here present, we are working in circular economy, inclusive education, sustainability, etc., etc. And definitely, I'm going to share this with all our partners, because there are so many ideas. Because now we're in sub projects. Now we are in this moment that we are testing the waters. You see, everything that we have learned through 1 year and a half or even 2 years. Now we are putting this into practice with young people that are developing projects, and this can be super inspiring. And also, as you say, see what the giants are doing, to get inspired. Yes, definitely. I really like that you mentioned this. How do you name it? Like innovation in legislation? What you use an expression?
Legislative creativity.
Legislative creativity. This is really insightful, and connecting with what you were saying, at the beginning. And I'm moving to question 2. I know we have 2 more questions, but what is the role of the European Union towards the future generations? So I think this connects with how do we legislate? What is the role of the current MEPs? We have many young MEPs. Yesterday I was at Parliament and I realized, wow, so many young MEPs. Some are 25, 26. I think we have the opportunity now, of really connecting with the younger generations.
Exactly.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for this. Thank you for sharing all the details about the awards. Elena was asking in the WhatsApp, in the chat. I just shared now the details with all of you about the awards, and also about the CD from Barcelona. Very insightful initiative and very, very inspiring. So having this said, David, let's move to the question number 2. As I was saying, I'm just now going to share very quickly question number 2, so we all have the chance to read the question. And as I was saying, David is really a podcaster. He's into creating innovative ways of communicating. I personally believe podcasts are here to stay, and we can learn a lot about podcasts. For me, it's a source of learning, daily learning. I'm learning a lot from your podcast concretely. So let's see this podcast as an alternative way of fostering dialogue, And here the question is really focused on passion moves the world, la pasión mueve el mundo. And my question is, I was saying, the podcast explore different avenues for dialogue beyond direct participation. So focusing on youngsters, how can young people use platforms like podcasts to foster understanding and engage in dialogue that goes beyond, transcends these traditional political discussions? And I think to some extent you have mentioned a little bit, that there are 2 ways of embracing democracy nowadays, more traditional one, more innovative one. So let's redirect this towards also the role of podcast and your podcast in particular. I'm going back to the beginning in case the present ones here. Let me just move our faces a bit. Okay, want to scan the QR code, although I will be sharing this with everybody. But if now you just are super excited and want to see how the podcast looks like, feel free to scan the QR code. I'm going to give a couple more of minutes. And David, the passion moves the world. What can you tell us?
Thank you, darling. So, well, what I can tell is I love podcasting. Is my passion. I really love to engage with people in dialogue. Is something that touches you. Sometimes I enjoy a lot, like even listening my own podcasts, because when I hear to the guests and so on, I'm keep getting like new layers of wisdom and information and so on. And I think dialogue is it's something that transforms us. It's something that opens your consciousness to the way of seeing life of other people, and it's also a very powerful way to connect worlds that have a lot to say. So, because collective intelligence is how I have come up to think. Uh, when I come to do a podcast, I try to bring in this perspective. So the podcast, which is called Passion, moves the world, because actually, I honestly believe that the origin of many positive, great changes in the world, they start with someone who knows that he or she would like to devote her life to something, the energies, your time, because you really feel it, because you believe in it. So it's not a matter of money, it's not a matter of prestige, it's not a matter of status. It's something that's coming in from you, and this gives you kind of like the drive to overcome big mountains and big obstacles, and to face rejection, misunderstanding, to feel alone, because that's a very common feature of innovators. Innovator, it sounds cool, no? Everyone speaks about innovation.
Yeah.
But being an actual innovator, many innovators face loneliness until they eventually find a community and find a recognition. So I'm lucky enough to have my podcast supported by the Europe Direct Aragón program, which is dependent on the financed by the European Commission in the last place, and by the Laboratory of Open Government of Aragon, who give me complete freedom to produce the contents that I want, which are related to Europe and conversations about Europe, and bringing Europe closer to citizens and citizens closer to Europe. So I'm going to share my experience, and I would love to hear from your experiences and how you think that basically we can use the new means of communication like podcasting and YouTube and social media and so on in a way that fosters constructive dialogue. And instead of creating more polarization, more misunderstanding, more hatred towards the other, more caricaturization of the other, bring us to say to a use of these actually fabulous tools to create a better democracy, to create a better, more unity in our societies and in the world as such. And so in each of the podcasts, I try to touch like hot topics of the with hot conversations, meaningful conversations in Europe, and bring like sometimes representatives from international institutions or from European institutions like the European Parliament, the European Commission, the United Nations, or former ministers or people who hold positions and represent, let's say, the world of institutions, and people from civic society, be it lawyers, artists, sportsmen and women, scientists, entrepreneurs. And sometimes, institutions suffer this bubble effect that they tend to be self-reinforces, and they create like there are many echo chambers, and institutions are not. They also suffer from that, and so I think it's really positive to connect these worlds, because by connecting two individuals, you're connecting the worlds and the networks that these people bring with them. And also, the podcast start with interviews done sometimes randomly in the streets, depending on the topic, or sometimes to different profiles in a conversation. And that's another way to bring collective intelligence, because one thing that I love about interviewing people randomly in the streets is that people have a level of awareness, consciousness, and insight about things that you would not always assume. There is a certain narrative that says that people are manipulated, they don't know, let it to the experts, people cannot be trusted. Um, you know,
people have some like a fake consciousness, and I do not believe this, and I think my experience disproves this. You ask people in the streets, what do they think about, what do they think about the situation in Ukraine and the war of Russia in Ukraine territory? And people do have lots of thinking. What do they think the relationship between the European Union and China should be? Is it can it be a potential partner, someone we should fear? Artificial intelligence, should it be regulated or should it be left to its own development? Because, what are people's attitudes towards it? And the guests that come to the program from these institutions, when they hear insights from citizens interviewed randomly in the streets, they say like, "Oh wow, it's great to see that we can have this level of conversations," and they are put in the beginning so that they can respond to them and so on. And I think this is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. I think this is honestly a modest experiment, but it points in a good direction, and I want to keep experimenting with this throughout the years. I feel like, Teresa, you want to say something?
No, I'm just
No, no,
listening.
no.
No.
So I'm just gonna share a few of covers of the podcast just to show you the last.
Well, if I was going to say something, David, was that this structure, no, the bringing the voices of the people in the street, I find this is so powerful. So powerful, because you are really not forcing, no, the guests to listen beyond the bubble, but it brings an element of freshness and so many different voices represented. And that was my positive comment. Like this is probably a really way of differentiating yourself and creating an element of innovation within the podcast. Yeah, that was just my comment, that I found this very fresh, very, when I listened to it for the first time. I was like,
Yeah, and you also discover something, which is people do not think in their trenches so much like you think. We sometimes think like, oh, this is this political tribe, or maybe this is from this political tribe, or I have this assumption that these people will think this or this or that. And it's like reality is fractal. What's outside is inside. It's all interconnected. It's not black and white, light and darkness. We all have many tonalities of colors and many tonalities of there. We actually people individuals' personality is not monolithic. It has complexity. We have different opinions on different topics. We feel differently about things in different moments, and we change. So it's a lot more fluid, and also dialogue is something that breaks assumptions about who the other is and what people think, what the other think, and this creates room for unlocking collective problems, for finding solutions elsewhere. And so in the podcast, for example, on Ukraine, there was in the interventions at the beginning, there was a Russian citizen living in Russia who was not very happy with the war. There is a young lady who had to leave her country because of the war. There is a war photojournalist. There is a Gandhian activist, a peace activist. There is an independent filmmaker who speaks about creativity in situations, and it's amazing. It's beautiful to see that everyone can contribute the perspective that you may have ignored so far. So let me share briefly some of the latest covers of the podcast, and maybe I can make one comment on how collective intelligence bring an insight that maybe was not so obvious in the beginning. So can you see this cover?
Yes, we do.
This one podcast is the EU before the Chinese giant, Iron Fist or Silken Glove. And so this is Leal García Herrero, who is chief economist of the investment bank Natixis for Asia, a great north of Asia, and Ignacio Alfayate, who's the representative of Nicolás Correa, a Spanish multinational in China. So she brings more like a global economic perspective, and he's bringing more the perspective of businesses, European businesses, making business in China and so on. And one question I asked him is, what can we learn from your experience from the Chinese culture and from the Chinese way of doing things? It doesn't mean that we want to have a model like the Chinese. We have a European model and we like it, but it has certain important strengths. And one of it is, for example, they highlighted their capacity to think very long term. China is a millenary nation, and they tend to see problems in a much larger perspective. So they tend to not to overreact to the events of today, and they are capable of achieving great things by thinking very long term. They want to root out, I don't know, rural poverty, or take out like pollution, the more pollutant factories from big cities, and they can make plans 20 or 30 years ahead, and they achieve them very often. You will, and of course, it's an authoritarian rule. It's so there is no inner debate. What the government says is said will be done with the Chinese Communist Party. So we don't want a system that is authoritarian like that doesn't give people a voice. But maybe it's not a bad feature to think long term, and maybe democracy could also be more long term oriented and having like long future oriented dialogues. And by the way, the symbol of Europe, the first time in history where a symbol of Europe is born, a symbol which is in all across Europe, is the cathedrals in the 13th century. 12th century, 13th century, with the rise of the Gothic style. There is a symbol, and cathedrals take generations to build.
Yes.
The cathedral of my hometown, Burgos, it took, I believe it's almost 300 years until it became completed in successive phases. So it means many people devoted their lives to something they did not see finished. And so maybe one thing that we can learn from this is, let's have like conversations about the future long after we're gone, maybe 6 or 7 generations after us, but to the very least, 50 years ahead, and think in terms of legacy design. What kind of legacy do we want to leave to the next generations? And maybe young people can also think of what kind of Europe do we want to leave as a legacy for the next generation. It is our task. It is our cathedral. It is our great collective building. And so I got this insight. There are many others.
Wow.
Trying to pass the in the second one about the process of the impacts of climate change in the Iberian Peninsula and the slow process of desertization. It's Andrea Mesa Murillo, former Environment Ministry in Costa Rica, and she's the chief of the UN Convention Against Desertification. Guido Schmidt, who is a German engineer living in Spain, specialized in water policy, and Jose Juan Martinez Caballero, who is a businessman. He's the owner of a straw company who has been affected by several periods of drought, with a huge shortage of his production, up to losing 75% of the production on of the economic activities in some cases. And one of the insights I get was from this gentleman, the businessman, who is suffering the drought himself, and gives an insight that maybe it's not obvious for the rest, which is they are creating communities of businesses who support each other to be more sustainable, to be more circular, to reuse whatever waste they've got and lend it to the other, and to support one another when a situation like a climate change impact or like a drought comes. And so in daily life, they work towards mitigation. They bring different industries, bring in this circular industrial estate project, and they say like, okay, what are my waste and how can it be useful to you? It can be heat, it can be electricity, it can be derivatives of milk, it can be water, it can be many things, and someone else can make use of it and input it into the production, being more efficient. And in some cases, many companies may have a similar waste, like for example wood or paper, but maybe not in a big enough quantity to justify to process that waste on your own. And so they create like a clean spot, like a processing center, where combining the waste of all of them, they may get like easily some 100 tons of wood a year, and that's worth processing and so on. And so the spirit of community brings also support in the case of a drought, where even your providers or your customers can say like, I'm gonna stay with you. I'm gonna stay with you and not change to another provider who may deliver this good at a cheaper price, because better times will come, and because it's also relationship based. So the spirit of community is hugely important when there is like a situation of vulnerability. And there is another chapter on the European path to AI with Iván García Blanco, Deputy of the European Parliament, Mónica Villas, expert and trainer in ethical AI. Conversation with Alexandra Matvichuk, former Nobel Peace Prize in Ukraine in 2022, human rights lawyer, super insightful, and Ana Palacio, first female foreign affairs ministers in the history of Spain and a sharp geopolitical analyst. And the last one of this series with Isidro Lasso, who is a policymaker at a high level with on the European Commission and the European Innovation Council. He's devoted 20 years of his life to support young entrepreneurs and startup ecosystems. And Alicia Sin, who is herself founder of a successful technological startup. And so you're bringing the ones who are making the policies with the ones who are in need of those policies, or also experiencing the impacts, both positive and not so positive impacts of policy. And so creating these spaces, I believe, has the potential to be a space for legislative creativity, for new agreements, for new understandings and ways of being useful. And what I can say is I really, really love this. I find it super, super exciting. I have a zillion ideas for new chapters to make. I'm not gonna say which. Keep tuned and you will see. And hopefully you will enjoy it.
We will. Yeah, David, you were going to say something. Sorry. No. Wow. The only thing I can say, listen to the podcast. I know some of you don't speak Spanish, but
some of them are subtitled in English.
Some of them are, yes, that's
on
why.
YouTube.
Yes. So highly encouraging and so inspiring. And as you say, this combination of bringing so many different stakeholders, into the room, that's what makes this podcast so innovative, and that's why I really encourage all of you to listen to it. David, thank you very much for this second question, and let's move to the third and last question, which is more personal for me in a way, because David was. Some of you know that back in November, I'm from Valencia in Spain, so we experienced a natural disaster that affected so many towns next to the coast, Mediterranean coast, and David found solutions. You see, he was like physically present at the time in Valencia, and this first question is going to address all the innovations that he brought at the community level and that have been successful. I know you are winning so many prizes and more things to come. And let me just share the screen. I'm talking and I'm not reading the question indeed. So, and we all witness, the role of youth people and youngsters from my town. I'm from a small town in the mountains. Everyone mobilized, to support people in need in this specific time. So this first question is focused also in the role of youth in crisis and the innovation at the community level, that you were witness and that you encourage. So I'm going to read this question, David, and then we move forward. So youth in crisis. So David, as I was saying, you were involved in the management, and direct support to the people in need in Valencia during this time. So specifically, David, what was the role of youth in navigating the crisis? How can youngsters contribute to political coordination and decision making in these times of emergency? And coming from Valencia and more general, what can we learn from youth engagement in moments like this, in moments that we all remember as critical and quite sad for all of us? But what are the, let's say, positive lessons that you can bring us today from this experience?
Thank you, Teresa. This is the last question, so I'm gonna try to keep it short so we respect the time and also make the whole conversation engaging. But it's true. I happen to be deployed in Valencia from first week with a volunteering organization called GBTE, and I mean, you said some community initiatives that of myself. It was a drop in the ocean. There were so many dozens of thousands of people who flocked in mass to help when the catastrophe in Valencia happened. And I think this is a hugely meaningful case from which we could all learn a lot in Europe. Firstly, because of the dimension of the tragedy, more than 200 people tragically died. There were several disappeared. There were an area equivalent to where 800,000, more than 100,000 people lived, and there were like dozens of thousands of homes which were like destroyed, wiped out. In Paiporta, which is where we were deployed, the worst hit area, there was not a single business standing. It's like literally everything was closed. The strength of the water and the sudden power of the water was so immense that it created a great destruction. And also, there was a big institutional failure to respond on time. There was a problem in giving advice and alert to the people in time. And very tragically, like many people felt unaware and felt like abandoned for 3-4 days, which are very critical time until the first until the forces of the state were present there. So there was a huge problem of coordination and agility. And this has created a lot of outrage in Spain because people felt like the state, the administrations were not quick enough to respond where people were most in need. But if you ask me, when you see this in a broader perspective, the truth is the system, the public administration, politics, democracy as a whole does not have the elements, the resources, and is not prepared to deal with the impacts of climate change, which are increasingly frequent, more violent, stronger, and it creates, it hits in areas where there may not have been this kind of phenomena in a long, long time, or maybe in a scale which is unseen. And so administrations are designed to deal with problems which are compartmentalized, localized. Okay, this is the problem. Okay, we have this budget, we have this program, we've got these public workers, we enact it. It's way too slow to make the decisions in the time needed for this. So this top-down approach, which also traditional big NGOs have, like big organization comes, reads the situation, deploy its effectives and implements a program, is not suitable for the scale and the transversality and the complexity of problems like climate change, which creates a mess. A flood like this creates a mess, and it's not okay. Whose departments is this responsibility? You need to reorganize everything on the go. And so my association is a specialist in collective action and coordination. And so in Paiporta, we had this role from week one of coordinating the inflow of humanitarian aid. And I must say that, as I mentioned before, there were like 50,000 volunteers who came physically to help in the first weeks of the disaster. And there were like thousands of tons of humanitarian aid donated from every corner of Spain. It was something super massive. And we're on the receiving end of that. And there were like tons of diapers, tons of food, tons of water, tons of cleaning products and bleach and soap and hygiene products and so on. And they came in a scale that was almost unmanageable. The clothes also, and it was very close to create a logistical collapse. But the interesting thing is that we were tasked with setting up a warehouse, which was called Warehouse 51, like an old factory, which was full with mud. We cleaned it together with the army. It was a 25,000 square meter warehouse, and there were like maybe like 50 trucks coming every day, and all together we put it there, we organized it, and from this place was delivered to 19 distribution centers in the whole area. The youth had a very key role because it became super engaged from day one. This narrative of, oh, this is a crystal glass generation, such a fragile generation, so easily offended, they don't withstand anything. It was crushed in Spain because like young teenagers and young people went there and really did what had to be done and fought the good fight. and providing immense assistance in a context which was not easy. And at the same time, this warehouse became a space of collective intelligence at its best. It became a source of innovation, like day by day, because this was a laboratory of social innovation. It was like, so the volunteers, the city council, it was the army, it was the large humanitarian organizations, everyone flocked there. And so everyone was oriented to solving problems. And there are problems every day, new problems every day you don't know how to tackle. And by having all of the stakeholders there, by having the whole system there, there is like a ground for great initiatives. And I think I'm going to share a couple of photos because it's easier shown than said. And so you can see that the point I'm trying to make is that social innovation may be our very best tool, and solidarity and social innovation may be our very best tools to deal with catastrophic climate change, and that the response to the impacts of climate change can be done in very different ways. It can be how do you say, like everyone tries to save him or herself on their own, and you don't care for others. Or you can do it with solidarity, with community spirit, and try to think and design solutions that reach everyone, including the most vulnerable people. And that's when you have the most, the most impact. And and by the way, it also takes away incentives for authoritarian rule and fascism, and because it reinforces a sense that people are taken care of, and we do not need a strong leader or savior who comes and saves people because they feel so abandoned and desperate. There are solutions in place. The people are being taken care of, and this, I'm talking about an ideal. I'm not saying that this did happen, but this is what should happen, and the project like this, I think, put a lesson in this direction. The GBGE, the Global Brigades for Groundwork in Emergencies, have been in other emergencies, like in the volcano in La Palma, in the refugee crisis in Ukraine, and in the Greek islands. Like in the first days, and this is not even one of the worst pictures, but like people were putting everything which was damaged and full with mud on their houses just in the streets, and so it was almost impossible to walk around. In some places there were like mud up to the knees, and this is after a week. So in the beginning it was a lot worse. Like there were like flip cars all over the place. 200,000 cars were destroyed, and people were left, without mobility. Young people started to mobilize and in creative ways to clean the streets, and they did an immense work. Actually, it was everyone. I'm not saying only young people, but young people had a very important role. And then it was set up. This is the warehouse I mentioned, and it was full with mud. It was quick. It was cleaned in record time, and then we started receiving like incredible amount of humanitarian aid. It was even a bit overwhelming, and there was like an excess of things. And then we set up a system which called, like, we call circular solidarity, in which everything was distributed to the population and nothing was thrown away. We gave a second life to everything that was donated, so that every donated item is treated with the same care as it was donated with. So the excess water, for example, or some water that became maybe not entirely safe for human consumption, it was donated to the animal shelter, to the animal care residency, so to say, which, because it was apt for animals. The excess of milk, for example, was donated to food banks. The excess of adult diapers to elder care residencies in Valencia or elsewhere, because throwing stuff away was not an option. There was an excess of clothes that could not be used. It was not in good condition and so on. And we managed to sell it. All of the clothes that were not used or could not be used, and it was used for different purposes. Some of it was sold for second-hand markets. Some of it was recycled, and it was sold at a competitive price, at the best price in the market. And all of the money, for example, was used as direct cash transfers for purchases for residents. Everything was given a second life. And this was the warehouse. This is a third of the warehouse. It's a lot bigger than that. And people are classifying it there. It was all volunteer run. And then, for example, we noticed that there are people with reduced mobility or with disabilities in houses, and they could not come to the distribution centers to pick up the humanitarian aid. Some were trapped in a fifth stage without elevator, which had been broken, without car. They had also been damaged, without the scooters or wheelchairs or the electric batteries of the wheelchairs. And so we make sure to deliver the aid to their homes, to collaborate with associations that deliver the aid to their homes. I believe the system needs to be improved because probably there are many people we did not reach to. So in the future, we should create a system to make sure everyone is taken care of. And also we developed like trainings for taking care of people with disabilities in humanitarian emergencies together with Foundation ONCE. Then we found, for example, social innovation and collective intelligence comes from being in touch with the people also, from listening to the needs of the people and being in touch with the reality. You see what the problems are. So I spend lots of time just walking around and talking to people, listening to them. And here, for example, you saw that some residents had lots of clothes that had been heavily damaged. You can see it on the left. Clothes that are important to them and they were trying to recover. But these clothes cannot be cleaned with a standard laundry system, with your usual washing machine. And so you needed a different thing. You needed an industrial system to get these clothes washed. But this was not certainly not available in the affected area. And going to Valencia was not an option for many people. They don't have cars and it's expensive. They've lost, So dozens of tons of clothes were thrown away, sadly. But we did manage to make a public-private partnership with the German company Miele, and we set up with their help, a very expensive washing machine system that has recovered tons of clothes and recovered, many damaged clothes back to their owners for free. So it's something very emotional, very important for them to recover, to see their clothes, the one they love, smell clean and being, your clothes are also your identity. And it's not the same if you get some donated jumper and you put it on. It feels like it takes away your personality and everything. It's a part of you. It's almost like a second skin. And so I hope that in the future, when there is an earthquake and there is a flood or whatever, instead of donating hundreds of tons of clothes, which may not be used and may generate a logistical collapse and which are of very unequal quality, we set up a laundry system from week one, day one, if possible. And we may have to recover many, many tons of clothes. And that's a socially equitable solution because it reaches everyone regardless of purchasing power. It is an environmentally smart solution because it's preventing from the waste of tons of clothes and the production of new clothes. And it fosters community spirit because you have an incentive to cooperate because you're waiting your turn, but you're going to be helped with this. And I wish we could have done a lot more, but I'm very happy with everything we learned. We set up a laboratory of restoration of damaged photographies, carrying like precious memories. More than 3,000 photographies were restored. And this, you didn't think of it before, but you see it. And there was a gentleman who was an expert in doing this stuff, and we facilitated everything he needed for him to set up the lab with mechanical procedures and also digital and AI-based technologies to recover the photos. And some of these photos didn't have a digital backup. So these are, when you are in touch with the needs of the people, you can come up with solutions, and this solution often require different stakeholders, and that's how you have social innovation. And dialogue, of course, is key because it's the glue that connects all of the pieces. I'm about to end. We found out that Valencia is a very musical region. Music is very important there, and people really trained. They really miss their instruments. They could not play music. Many instruments had been lost.
Yeah.
And they were struggling to recover their musical instruments. And so we organized a concert in the city, in the main square of Paiporta, only 30 days after the flood. And that's me there playing. And Jorge Martinez, the director of La Unión Musical de Paiporta, and the army lent us this huge truck, and a local company lent us this huge, beautiful piano. And there were like 6 different concertists playing, and like 300 neighbors enjoying the concert. And there was like a chain, like a movement of concerts being celebrated around Spain, inspired by this concert. And they were charity-oriented, fundraising-oriented concerts, and all of the money raised, which was several thousands euros, was destined to buy new instruments. The affiche for the first concert represents El Eucalipto de Paiporta, which is a tree which had survived 3 floods. And this was a local resident who said, like, I think this would be the symbol. I think this would be the symbol. And so, you know, the best idea can come from everyone. And if you have your ears open, you can create powerful symbols and so on. And now the project, we are still doing projects in the area, and the last one project I hope to be able to scale up is a library of tools, because many people now are repairing their homes, and hopefully we're gonna get a fund for several dozens of thousands of euros to buy things like heat cannons and dehumidifiers to end up with the humidities that still remain in the houses, and elements to paint the houses, which are expensive and are a strong investment, and it's a one-time use objects. And instead of having everyone buying them, why don't you buy them at the community level and you establish a system to lend them for free, so that every family can solve the problem once at a time? So that's, again, solutions that benefit everyone, create harm to no one, and create a sense of collective hope, I hope. I'm going to end the presentation here and open up for the
Wow,
dialogue.
David, thank you very much. So I haven't mentioned that also David is a pianist, among many other things. Really, I mean, being from Valencia, this at the personal level means a lot. All the work that you have been doing, and I'm speechless, if I'm honest. Really, really, very, very touched by all of this. But you said something that I think connects a lot with the value of youth in our society. Really being in touch with the actual needs of the people, no, and finding solutions at the community level, fostering innovation, despite the challenges. No, we have learned a lot, and this, the laundry system. Also, raising awareness about what is really climate change, that we need to go beyond, the big structure and these big organizations, government level. New ways of thinking are required. Youngsters have
Absolutely.
a place in these new ways of thinking. We really need to listen to their voices. And again, I want to say thank you for the work that you did, David, everything that you are doing at the moment, and also a big thank to all the young people from all over the region and the country that went to Valencia to support, and to raise this sense of like community and seeing that things can happen, and that was wonderful. So having this said, we have transitioned through big like innovation awards, then we went to your podcast, David. Now we are going to the community level. So I think that we have been touching key pivotal topics, and I think that if we could extend this for an extra hour, and we would be still talking and bringing more key insights into this conversation, but time is limited. I know some of our participants already had to go, so now we are really in petit comité. So it's the time that if you have a question, raise it now. In any case, I'm going to follow up with all of you, the ones that are not here and the ones that are, with all the details on the David podcast, Innovation Awards, everything that has been mentioned. Anything else that, David, you want to share with me so afterwards I follow up with the participants. But if there is any question, now is the time to address the question.
Questions, comments.
Ines, dear.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I wanted to thank you, David, for the insights. It was really insightful, and as a 21 years old, I really felt more hopeful about our generation. And it is true that in the beginning you were talking about this sense of agency that we want to have, especially over issues that we feel are bigger than us. And in this sense, I had a question, and it is coming back to the third section. So I wanted to know, reflecting on the youth responses during the Valencia outbreaks, I wanted to know if you think that there is any way that we can find long-term structures or networks to really sustain this kind of momentum that there is during this kind of outbreaks. I don't know if it's clear for you. Let me know if it's not.
Do you mean like how should we redesign the system so we better prepare for this kind of climate events, or how can the support on the ground be sustained all of the time needed until you're back to normality or you have basically recovered from the disaster?
It is more the latter, yeah.
Great question. I don't really have the full answer to that. I think in the end, really the public administrations and the state do have the function of supporting these territories until they have fully recovered, because just with the energy of volunteers is very hard to sustain, very hard. And it's true that GPG, my association, does like long-term interventions. It stays from the beginning up to the end. In the case of the earthquake in Turkey, it was deployed for almost a year. In the Canary Islands for a year and a half. So it's long-term effort, but that's kind of like rare. So I am inclined to think of a combination of all of the strengths, both that of civic society and volunteers and organizations, also the media, because the moment that the news cycle ends and the attention filters away, there is a tendency, oh, this disappeared from the news, then probably it's already kind of like more or less fixed. And I was in Paiporta last week, and I might be there again this weekend. And no. The amount of work to do is immense. Not a small fraction of all of the businesses have reopened 6 months after. Most of the businesses have not reopened, and there is a legacy of persistent poverty and insecurity, rising insecurity also, and many long-term problems. You can see the effects of the flood everywhere. There is not the mud in the streets. There are not like screws in the streets, in the roads like before, that you got like a tire break because it was full. It was unsafe to move from one place to another. But you need to sustain a long-term effort. And if you ask me, Ines, I think we should redesign the entire institutional system to respond to the emergencies and to respond to the disaster with a long-term view. So I'm in favor of creating a unified European army, but if you ask me, it should be oriented mainly to humanitarian crises and to responding to climate disasters. Because if there are like wildfires in Portugal or Greece, or a flood in Valencia, or maybe tomorrow is in Germany or Latvia or elsewhere, or in other parts of the world for the matter, we are all humans. No individual state has the means to respond to disasters in this scale. Not even California had it with the recent wildfires. Not even Japan could properly deal with a tsunami in Fukushima, because it overwhelms the capacity of anyone individually. So it's not a national problem. It's a problem of humanity, and humanity can and should respond to it. And so because this is like a bad lottery, because tomorrow, okay, today the bad price, I don't know how to express it, was from the people in Valencia. Tomorrow it can be elsewhere, and you don't know if you're gonna you understand my metaphor, be hit by the unfortunate event, and there is no one left out of this, and these events are going to be more frequent. The normal thing to do is to create systems of solidarity that benefit everyone, that channel financial funds when the disaster happens and afterwards, which has like emergency services and firemen and firefighters and civil protection services from everywhere, but especially from Europe. If there is a climate disaster anywhere in Europe, it is a European problem. And so we are not prepared for that. There are some signs that we're working in that direction, and I would love to work. I'm actually actively seeking for the opportunity to design a program like this. Yeah, I don't know if this answered your questions, Ines. If you have other thoughts, I'm very happy to hear that.
Sorry, definitely. Really, I 100% agree. And also I wanted to hop on something because you were talking about the fact that this kind of momentum like wears off over time, and especially with like people's attention, because I think also the fact that we are growing into like a this rapid over-consuming society, especially in terms of content, etc. I was also wondering how we can do online at our scale to quite like keep it again sustained in time.
Well, don't do it alone for sure. Don't do it alone. Take care of yourself. Let others take care of you. Take care of others. Ask for help when you need it. Um, really wonder why you are doing what you're doing. Um, Becoming active in the problems that matter to you may be good for your mental health, because we can fall into apathy and depression if you think like things are going in the bad direction and you feel there is nothing you can do about it. So at least there is a great joy in engaging in something that goes beyond yourself, your private life, your private taste, hobbies, experiences, romantic affairs, friends, whatever. There is a joy in and a transcendence in doing something that goes beyond you. And of course, set boundaries. If it's related to volunteer work or activism or so on, it can drain energy from you also, and you can get burnt out. But leadership, getting engaged is a form of leadership. Leadership is what in the end we're talking about. And leadership is one of the greatest gifts we can do to one another. So I think like good ethical leadership is something that we as a society, in my opinion, could honor and recognize a lot more, because leadership means you are making yourself responsible. This means you are responding for a problem that may not be your own. You're doing it because you care about others and you care about something more than yourself. And so if you surround yourself with positive minded people, people who are also supportive in this path, I think it's a lot easier not to break down throughout time, and on the contrary, to find joy in it and to grow in ways you may not expect, and which may benefit you also in different areas of your life. And in terms of work, if you're lucky enough to know what you like, what you want to do, and to find a space in which your work also collaborates towards the values that you believe in, that's also fantastic. That's when you have the full pack. And hopefully companies become more and more sensitive. I think they are already, many are, in bringing sense of mission and purpose, and not just simply being oriented to profit, but also to, you spend lots of hours at work, no? 8 hours, 10 hours a day at work. You want it to have some meaning, don't you? So that's also another way to see through work, how can my day-to-day work, my bill paying work, also see if you can have the beautiful formula in which it also aligns with that in which you believe. And that's a long-term quest. I design all of my career and all the things I do around passion and purpose. I'm a passion and purpose driven person, and I do take risks. I do take risks for taking this path, but in my opinion, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That would be for the best. I am hopeful now, and I think especially it's contributing to participate in this kind of webinars, to see that there are like-minded people who actually are hopeful about this. I am so sorry for taking that much time. Maybe there are other people that want to ask questions. I have a last question, if you do not mind, because
I
you were
do not. Do you, Teresa?
No. Ines, go ahead. Go
so
ahead.
sorry. Thank you.
If there are more questions, just raise your hands, okay? So I will be able to know. But if not, we can conclude with Ines. Go ahead,
Perfect.
please, Ines.
Thank you. This is my last question, but promise.
Go for it.
Speaking of leadership, because you were saying you were talking about this, I wanted to talk about leadership online, and I know that now there is like this growing cancel culture and self-censorship that's growing as well. So I wanted to know if you had any advice for young content creators who want to shape public discourse without falling into this kind of polarization and self-censorship.
That's a fantastic question. And I would like to hear your answer to that question. Okay, so I'm going to give you my best answer to that question, but my answer might not be the best one. And since you are asking the question, you very, very likely you have your own answer to that, right? I think it takes courage to bring your genuine voice out there and expose yourself. I think it's easier to come up with to either hide away or show up with masks to not really, show up in a genuine way. But I think that if sometimes it's okay to not be liked by everyone, and I think you need to discount opposition or rejection or disagreement. It's not necessarily a failure. Like you can take it if it's constructive disagreement, then it's great. This means that by your stating one point, you're triggering another person to state their own point, and that's dialogue, no? So that's great. When it comes to more like toxic feedback or simply, insults or like hatred or, comments which are not really taken into account the context or anything, I guess everyone has their own way about it. There are people who prefer to ignore it. There are people who come with it with a certain compassion. You can always learn something from the feedback, but I think in any case, it should not stop you from going forward, because we need we need genuine voices to be heard, and there's a strong incentive for doing that which is most rewarded at certain moments, that which gets more recognition, that which gives you the dopamine shot of instant recognition and cater to what's popular in a certain moment. But in the end, that's just following fashions, and in the long run, people who have made a difference, they were not just following whatever was trendy and accommodating to whatever, to group thinking at every moment. You need independent thinking, and if you believe deeply in what you're saying, and you're sharing your best understanding, and you're doing so with humility, you're not attacking anyone, you're simply expressing yourself and expressing your voice, and you're also doing with an intention of contribution, you're in the right path. You're in the right path, and there is no option not to do that. So I think this conviction, which can more from inside that from the outside feedback. The conviction normally is something that comes from inside, from your own feeling and your own understanding. Others are free to respond however they want. They are. And you can listen, certainly, but that doesn't mean you should suppress your voice, because if we do, then how can we have any genuine dialogue? If we're in such a shallow level of conversation, we're not even talking. How boring, no? I don't know. This would be my arguments. What would be yours?
Yeah, that's for sure. I do agree with you. I share the same opinion with the fact that we should be able to take also constructive criticism, and we should, as much as possible, avoid creating these echo chambers, and be able, yeah, to communicate in this environment. But it's true that sometimes I can feel that people are afraid to expose their truth and
Yep.
to speak their mind because they feel like they are going to be cancelled, or that it's too much of a hot take, especially when it's like hot topics right now. But definitely understanding is important, and communicating is as well. But at the same time, I think that the algorithms are not helping,
No.
because sometimes I really want to debate with people that I don't know are racist, for example, because
Yeah.
I want to talk to them and see what's their mind, what's their point. And at the same time, like, how am I gonna reach these people, given that the algorithm is creating these echo chambers?
Well, if you bring all of these different people together and you bring them for a space of constructive dialogue, face to face, people don't say the same stuff that they throw anonymously on social networks. And so,
Yeah, definitely.
and you put your face, you put your name, you put your responsibility behind your words, and people become more nuanced, no? So I would say one way of creating a conversation that it's appealing to different publics is to bring members of these different publics, members of these different bubbles together, and that's how you create constructive dialogue, and go beyond the obvious positions. If someone is racist, as you mentioned, is this person really racist? What does this person mean? Maybe that person has some legitimate concern. I don't know. Maybe it has some experiences. Maybe not, and this person has something
Exactly.
to change and to realize. But things are not so binary sometimes, so black or white. I would like to hear. I mean, I would like to hear what this person thinks, and also be humble and thinking, we all may have racist or sexist attitudes and so on. What's outside is also inside. You know, if you speak from a level of, I'm not lecturing you or preaching you or telling you how things should be, I'm somehow morally superior ground and I'm talking down to you, but more with, okay, this is my honest understanding. What is yours? And bring these voices together. Maybe you create something that's appealing to different publics. And there are a number of channels that are going in this direction. But Ines, invite for us to stay in touch, because I feel like you have, correct me if I'm wrong, the vision for creating some kind of program or YouTube channel. You've got something in mind. And if I can be of any support, or maybe in the end it's you inspiring me, don't be surprised by that. I'll be very happy for it, and I will be a follower of your content.
This is very kind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation. Very insightful again. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you. And we are going to take Anna's question, and I'm afraid we need to conclude the webinar.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to listen to you. Greetings from Sofia, Bulgaria. I'd like just to invite you, in case you initiate on the basis of your great expertise, some initiative on building skills in youth for disaster, natural disaster, industrial disasters, any kind of emergency in the context of political uncertainty. A lot of governments already are talking for building economy of defense, and we are not ready. So have in mind that we from Bulgaria are open for participation. We are working in the field of transport and logistics, and it is very important component in such disasters. So I think Teresa will always contact us. Thank you.
Let's do that. Thank you,
Yes.
Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very, very happy to put you, Anna, in touch with David. And thank you, Anna, for being here today. Always happy to see you. Well, so David, what can I say apart of a massive thank you? Because it's been, oh, thanks. David just shared his email on the chat group. So insightful, so inspiring. It's always a pleasure, David, listening to you, learning from you, from all your vast experience and this mindset you have, like this cataclysm of change and envisioning, different futures. And I have the certainty that you have brought this into the table today. You have inspired many of us. So thank you very much. Really highly appreciated having you here with us, and really looking forward to continuing our collaboration. To all the ones present, that I will be following up with you via email with all the details that we have been, addressing during this super engaging conversation. And really looking forward to seeing you for the next webinar, which is taking place on the 24th of April. Additional details will follow. And again, David, muchas
Thank you so much,
gracias.
Teresa. You are the best. Super kind.
You
Thank
are
you for
the
being
best.
such a great host.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone, for the conversation and
Thank
for the
you.
attention.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you,
Bye,
Mr.
Ines.
Have a nice
Chafar. All the ones, Anna, Ella. Thank you, dear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel.
Bye,
Thank you.
Isa. Bye,
Bye.
Sigurd. Bye,
Bye.
Elena. Ciao.